So we are going to be kicking off our first session centered around equity in education, and Joy Shen from Harvard University will be our first presenter today. Take it away, Joy.
Hi everyone, I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. Nice to meet you all. It's great to see so many people on the Zoom so early in the morning. So today I'm going to kick us off with equity in education, and I'm going to be talking about teaching environmental science across cultures, what sticks, what breaks, and why that matters for Boston Harbor. So I've taught environmental science in many countries before, in Nepal, Kenya, China, and Louisiana. And the science of water doesn't change every time I teach it, but what does change is how people live with it, and that will change how we teach it. In Nepal, for example, environmental science, sorry, I realized I have entered sharing mode. Um, Okay, we're just gonna go with this. So, for example, in Nepal, environmental science education focused on floods and landslides tied to lived memory. In Kenya, water engineering showed how um, the sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay, there we go. Okay, and in Nepal, in Kenya, water engineering showed how invisible infrastructure shapes trust and access, and in China, food sustainability highlighted how water systems are embedded in urban consumption. Finally, in Louisiana, coastal restoration made ecological loss visible through physical labor. The science stayed the same every time I taught it, but the meaning did not. Across these contexts, the same pattern emerged. What sticks with students is hands-on work and relevance to their local culture, and teaching systems instead of isolated facts about the science. What breaks or what does not stick with them is abstract models without human context, a one-size-fits-all lesson plan, or treating nature as separate from their daily life when it is in fact all around us. Boston Harbor is an ecosystem infrastructure, public space, and an economic engine all at once for us. Risk does exist, but it often feels distant. That makes Boston Harbor even more powerful since it teaches resilience before it feels urgent. One concrete activity that we can use with students is to start with shoreline observation. For example, students can map ecological features alongside human use. We could then model how marsh vegetation reduces wave energy using a simple living shoreline simulation. And finally, I can connect my previous Louisiana restoration work or another previous experience to Boston Harbor to make resilience more tangible.
30
My
seconds.
goal here isn't to export a single model of environmental education. It's to offer a framework that adapts to culture and any place using Boston Harbor as a living system that people depend on. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Next up, we are going to be hearing from Katie Mirgalia from UMass Boston. Katie, take it away.
Hello. Sorry, my microphone was being finicky. I do not have any slides, I apologize, but my name is Katie Moralia. I'm currently wrapping up my Master's of Education, Secondary Ed, and this past semester I finished my Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science, with my capstone being about indigenizing AP Environmental Science. So what I did was I took 3 units from that course, biodiversity, energy resources and consumption, and then aquatic and terrestrial pollution, and focused on 3 foundational concepts where Western culture differs from Indigenous knowledge and practices, and did some baseline curriculum planning. So what that looked like was a lot of hands-on activities like that last presenter focused on, as well as case studies rooted in local experiences and students. So the audience that I specifically focused on, I'm doing my practicum at the John D. O'Brien here in Boston. So focusing on 11th and 12th graders in the Boston area, so Boston Harbor Islands as some case studies. What I did, making baseline lesson plans so that if I were to teach AP Environmental Science, we would have plans rooted in some foundational concepts, and then really fleshing those out. What main focus areas would want to be posted around the room and leading discussion. So the three we landed on were timelines, so how decisions are made in Western culture versus Indigenous culture, adaptation, how people work with the land, the expectations of the land as a resource, and then living and non-living neighbors. So how do we view those abiotic, biotic factors of our environment? The reason why I felt attached to this specific topic was because I didn't feel like through my high school AP Environmental Science course that I learned a lot about the relationship of Indigenous people and science. A lot of times Indigenous people felt like a historical concept, like a past tense um, topic, and so wanted to work on fleshing that out into AP Environmental Science. Right now, I'm working on how to indigenize ninth grade biology. So it's a different set of students, and the topic there is urbanization in two steps.
30
So
seconds.
colonialism, thank you, colonialism and urbanization. Um, very excited, focusing on taking those foundational concepts and writing them into about a 5-week period about a little bit of the history and science. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. Next up, we'll be hearing from Bree Tribuna from UMass Boston.
Hey everyone, I hope you can see my screen. I'm Bree Tribuna. I'm a graduate student studying urban planning and community development at UMass Boston. And I'm also the program manager for the UMass Boston Urban Planning and Community Development High School program. So, why do we need pathways to planning? Broadly, our goal is to introduce youth of color to the world of urban planning. There is a persistent underrepresentation of people of color in urban planning and design within the greater Boston area and beyond. Many students don't know about planning as a career and experience it as decisions made for them and their community by somebody else. But they have lived experience that makes them amazing assets to their communities, and we want these students to see themselves as co-designers in their neighborhoods. So we established a summer immersion program for youth of color in the Boston Public Schools to introduce them to planning and climate resilience careers. Since 2021, the program has expanded into not just a summer program, but dual enrollment throughout the academic year, after school workshops, internships, blue green economy curriculum, and expanded mentorship supports. So now I'd like to tell you a lot about the programs that we worked on this past summer. Our students worked with Boston Bikes to facilitate bike towns, which are safe spaces to teach children and teens how to ride a bike. On the top right there, you can see one of our students helped to fit a bike helmet. And actually, one of our students learned to ride a bike herself. On the first day of the internship, she was a little bit shy, but she was brave enough to figure out how to balance on the bike, steering, and braking. But by the end of the summer, she and her mom had rented blue bikes themselves to go on a bike ride. Students also worked with the Blue Bike program to survey cyclists about their trips. So they worked on research skills by developing survey questions themselves, practiced interviewing their peers, and then with a little bit of bravery, they interviewed the public, which is something that is still scary for me and I know is scary for a lot of planners. At the end of the summer, our students joined other students at the Urban Scholars program here at UMass Boston to present their posters and summarize their findings. On the left, you can see the results of the surveys, and this was a great chance for them to try out data analysis to look at all of the survey responses and think, what does this mean for the bigger picture of Boston Blue Bikes? And then on the right, you can see how they thought about bike towns and how they're beneficial for our communities and started to think about how we might expand bike towns in the future and in their own neighborhoods. We are currently
30
conducting
seconds.
Thanks. We are currently conducting surveys of past students and community partners to demonstrate the impact so far. But I can tell you through one summer working with these kids, it's a really great experience and I look forward to doing it again. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bree. Next up, we will be hearing from Caroline Gebhardt at Puddle Stompers Nature Exploration.
Hello, everyone. Good to see some familiar faces. Let's see if I could share my screen. All right. Here we go. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Caroline. I'm a former UMass Boston student at the Chen Lab, and now I'm here working at Puddle Stompers, which is an early education company focused on environmental ed. And today I wanted to talk about how we're working to incorporate nature-based solutions. So I already introduced ourselves a little bit, but I think the thing that makes Puddle Stompers so exciting is that we are trying to bring nature-based solutions to a very young audience. We serve kids from 2 to 9 years old. And so when Melissa, fellow Chen Lab member, and I we're thinking of how can we incorporate more nature-based solutions into our curriculum. That was a really big challenge, was how can we scale down a problem that we typically learn about in a high school or college class down to a level that a preschooler can understand. So we spent a lot of time working with and planning and seeing what strikes well for a little kid. You obviously don't want to start talking about climate change or any real negative environmental impacts. So we wanted to focus on problem solving as well as scaffolding curriculum. For us, that seems to make a lot of sense to introduce small problems and then build on them so kids can learn how to build resilience, build sustainable solutions. And something that we decided to focus on is framing it through what nature already does. A lot of our programs focus on animals or adaptations that different living creatures have to their environment. And so we figured, how can we harness something that the kids are already familiar with and turn that into, a kid-friendly sustainability program. So for example, we're going to talk about flooding and storm surges. And for that, we're going to talk about, plants like wetland plants or salt marshes that we have lessons for, or even things like beavers. Kids love cute little animals to talk about. So we're going to try to incorporate sort of how does this animal respond to changes in its environment and how can we utilize that? And also we serve kids in the greater Boston area of all different places, including deep in the Boston area. And so some of these kids might not have seen a beaver or seen some of the impacts of climate change or fully conceptualize that in their head. So we wanted to develop a game specifically around nature in the city, expanding access to nature in the city. So this is what our team has come up with. It's in testing right now, but we're going to actually test it out next week during our February break program. I wish this conference was a week later so I could tell you how it went. But
30 seconds.
We're doing sort of a board game where they can access different pieces of nature and figure out where to put them best in their city. So sort of parks, solar parking lots, green roofs, all sorts of ecosystems to sort of teach kids that you have a space, you can plan how your space looks, especially in the city, and there's room for nature and humans to coexist. So look forward to testing it out next week. It's a fun thing to work on. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Caroline. Next up, we'll be hearing from Tessa Deal and Natalie White from the Kathleen Stone Island Outward Bound School.
Morning, my name is Natalie and this is Tessa, and we work for Kathleen Stone Island Outward Bound School. So we do programming on an island in the Boston Harbor. This island has a strong history of education as it's been home to many iterations of schools over the past few centuries. We currently have 3 main program types. Connections and Discovery are both year-round programs, and then Green Ambassadors, or GA, is done in the summer. So Connections is our flagship program. It's focused on the middle grades, so currently 6th through 8th grade, and we're under revision to include 9th graders. And this 3-year progression has one main focus per year. So first we start off with belonging, then courage, and then reflection. These focuses are enacted on both single day and overnight field trips during the school year, and then on optional summer backpacking or sea kayaking expeditions. We are going to focus on our Green Ambassadors program here. So that's our high school 3-year Earn and Learn summer program. So students are accepted into the GA program after completing their first year of high school. They must apply, interview, and then are paid as hourly workers once they're hired.
The Green Ambassadors program builds students' workplace skills through classic to outward bound team building, climate justice curriculum, and a technical project. We're going to focus today on the curriculum piece and highlight 3 modules, which are detailed in the document I just sent in the chat. The Year 1 curriculum largely focuses on the guiding question, what is climate change? Ambassadors explore the science and root causes of climate change, as well as how it impacts the places that we inhabit. The activity we're sharing today asks students to explore their personal relationship to spaces that face impacts from climate change. GAs write a love letter to a place with personal importance, highlighting the specific details that hold meaning. The focus is on personal connection, making it clear that we all have somewhere worth protecting.
The Year 2 curriculum expands on the human focus by learning about climate justice. One of the activities that gets GAs thinking about the complexity of issues is a role-playing simulation called a town council. So the GAs are given a character to play in the hypothetical debate over whether or not a bridge should be built from mainland Boston to Kathleen Stone Island. They're given information on their character's perspective, and through moderated discussion, they must make a decision. More important than the final decision is the work that the GAs do to understand why each stakeholder has their opinion. In their final year, GAs think about their role in climate justice and create a group summer-long project. Before deciding on the project, each GA completes their own climate action Venn diagram. Some of you may be familiar with this worksheet, as it comes from Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson's work. Here, the GAs take stock of their skill sets and interests, and then apply them to real problems we face in the hopes of working out how they can best be part of climate solutions.
Finally, on this slide are some of the guiding principles we use to design the curriculum. As humans, and especially when discussing topics that can elicit strong emotions, it is very important to feel belonging. We believe that these principles help our students feel ownership for their knowledge, connection to one another, and belonging in the natural world.
Wonderful. Thank you, Natalie and Tessa. And last up in this session, we are going to be hearing from Peter Garrick from Boston University.
One moment to share my screen here. Let me see if I can just launch this. Okay, I'll do it from the slides. Okay, so this is including all learners in place-based sense-making about nature. I am Peter Garrick, faculty member in the Science Education Program at Wheelock College at Boston University. My objective this morning is to provide an example of how at an urban elementary school with little green space, it is still possible to do place-based environmental science with MLLs and neurodiverse students. What I am going to describe is the work of 2 teachers, Andrea Ferreira and Soraya Santana, based on their NSTA presentation. The goals for the science, Andrea and Soraya created a science club that met for 45 minutes once a week. Selected students who were having difficulty were taken from their classrooms. The goals for the science club included providing students with hands-on science activities that foster oral language development, vocabulary building, and high-level thinking skills, building background knowledge through place-based sense-making science activities, and using outdoor spaces as learning tools across the curriculum. There were 18 students between grades 3 and 5, all MLL students. The school is new. The school's green space is the border of the school. You can see a single tree. What do you do if your school has little green space? How much do you really need to engage your students? Andrea used a corner of the building to plant seeds and bulbs for the students to observe. So all they needed was a little bit of green space to see the phenology of growth. The students practiced observation skills and simple hypothesis creation, along with experimental testing with indoor and outdoor investigations using GLOBE protocols and GLOBE Mission Earth activities. The instruction was dual language, with sentence starters in English, with instructions in English and Spanish. There was a chart of cognates on the wall as new words were integrated into the club. this image was part of the globe activity of green down and green up. The students observed changes in leaf color throughout the fall. They had a plant color guide to follow the progression of colors in fall and spring. One of the trees in the parking lot had branches that the students could reach. So the students observed bud and leaf growth in the spring.
30 seconds.
The students observed the phenology of trees by collecting, reporting, and graphing data on surface temperature, air temperature, day length, sunset, sundown times, leaf color, and bud growth. This was their final product, a collection of graphs and analyses of their observations. This was organized into a scientific poster. What were the teaching strategies used for the MLLs? Strategy one was use of cognates, then combining language with kinesthetic demonstration and disaggregated instruction. So we will be happy to share more activities and support you in the use. My email is garrick@bu.edu, and here's a QR code. I recommend my NASA data as well as going to globe.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Welcome back to everyone who is here for our first session, Equity in Education. It was a very exciting time. We are here today for the 2026 Boston Harbor Environmental Educators Workshop. Our next session is going to be place-based education. Please as a reminder, keep your microphone muted while you are not speaking. Also, as a reminder, our format will be as follows. Each speaker will get 3 minutes to present to the large group here. Then, after we get through all 6 presentations, we will go into breakout sessions with each speaker. So you can join the breakout session of speakers who are interested in asking questions or making comments of. So please save all questions and comments until those breakout sessions when you can join those speakers. Again, we are moving into our place-based education section. We will start today with Krista Fink. I'll stop share so that you may.
The thumbs up, Kayla, if that's good to go. Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Krista. I'm from the Blue Hill Observatory. I am excited to talk through teaching questioning through nonlinear data. If you are unfamiliar with the observatory, we've been collecting data for 141 years, weather data in the same spot. And a handful of years ago, we started collecting data that was nationwide, and we actually have persisted even though the nationwide data collection has paused, called Picture Post. And so it is a iterative, continuous picture repository. The 8 sides of this post represent the same directions that we get the photos from, and this pear tree is an example of one of the images that we have from at least 2013, and we have images for every single week. And so what we were doing with students was using this repository to have students do some of their observational note-taking and evidence finding themselves. And we were sharing our temperature data, for example, including many other data points that we have. And we were finding students of all ages really wanted this clear cause and effect linear answer to what they were seeing. So they would say, okay, well, I see 2016 had higher temperatures. It's not surprising to me. I know this already. But also I expect that if July has a higher temperature, then I expect our pear tree to look brown or have lost all its leaves or be dead. They wanted this like one for one. And so we started transitioning some of the work that we were doing and asked ourselves this question: what do we do when the answer is not simple? Because science is not simple. There's so many factors, particularly with plants, that impact how they are doing in their health and wellness. And so when we're looking at flora as our indicator, it gave us an opportunity to ask students what other data they might want to see. Do they want to know about the precipitation levels? Do they want to know about the wind, where that's kind of impacting plants? And we got to discuss the resiliency of plants. This doesn't happen in one day when you have a drought. And we started to think through our approach. So this was no longer necessarily about the data or the content that was kind of leading this for us, but the actual like forefront was the scientific core concepts. So we wanted similar students to do works that were similar to scientists, and in a short period of time, we had them for 3 hours sometimes, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. But to do all that work in a short period of time was really challenging. So we leaned on the science and engineering practices, and we really had students start to ask questions. This was challenging. Finding evidence is also a tricky thing, but we know that students do less asking questions. And so we started to provide some sample questions for students and started to have them look at the long-term effects of what's happening over time. So my sample here shows you that, okay, maybe we look at 5 months and allow students to parse out some of those pieces. And then they get to pretend they're an intern or doing some research for us. And in a short period of time, then we give them the pictures and say, now that you've asked the question and you've practiced that
30
skill,
seconds.
now look at this and do some observational. So we're still leaning into observational data. Tricky to see all this from a picture, of course, as evidence, and kind of trying to get back to some of those core concepts of scientific practices around using questioning to lead your inquiry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will now move to Raji Desai. Thank you.
Sorry, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. For some reason, I can't get it to be full screen. Okay, what if I were to tell you that by the year 2050, the most frequent commuter at the aquarium MBTA stop might not be a human, but a giant Pacific octopus? Good morning, everyone. I'm Raji, and I believe that the climate crisis is in large part a communication crisis. If we really want our climate care to stick, we need more than just data. We need a new grammar of care with formats that we can engage with in our classrooms, in our kitchens, and in our daily lives. We've all seen the headlines far too often here in New England. The Gulf of Maine is warming faster than 99% of the oceans. In Boston, we're constantly inundated with maps and projections like these about a disappearing coast. But often, the science arrives as technical lines and abstract boundaries. It's accurate, it's essential, yet it's incredibly easy to distance us from the impacts of it in our daily lives. It's like a report to read, not a world we inhabit. The truth is that sea level rise isn't a singular event waiting for the year 2050 or 2100 to arrive. It's an everyday condition of infiltration. I call this systems of arrival. The sea doesn't just stay at the edge. It uses our own civic infrastructure, our storm drains, our subway vents, and our transit thresholds to enter our cities. The very systems we have designed to keep the water out are becoming the pathways for its arrival. This creates a massive gap. 69% of us believe that this is happening, but the scale of the data often leaves us feeling numb. To bridge this cognitive dissonance, I propose the concept of a climate container. A climate container is essentially a sensory object that translates abstract data into lived experience. It allows us to stay present and helps us replace this numbness with an active, curious care for the world that is constantly unraveling in front of us. My chosen climate container for today is a small but mighty reimagined Post-it stamp, a civic micro-monument. Stamps are familiar, they carry memory, and they travel across boundaries as well as generations. For this artwork series, I wanted to create a space of a reimagined Post-it stamp wherein we can pause and invite curiosity into the conversation. You'll notice here that the stamps are 0 cents. It's because you can't put a price on ecological memory that they carry. We see our invisible marine neighbors juxtaposed against our everyday civic spaces, from the newly arrived red lionfish in our stormwater drains to the giant Pacific octopus getting entangled in our MBTA turnstiles. Each of these species is a protagonist in its own. It's a dispatch from the deep, whether it's the American lobster shifting its range or the Atlantic horseshoe crab that is enduring habitat stress. These aren't just biological or scientific facts, they're the coast and our marine neighbors that are speaking to us. Care begins with attention, and attention begins with a story we can actually engage with at the human scale. By by rendering
30 seconds.
visible the seemingly invisible marine neighbors which are going to be impacted, I wish to kind of cultivate a new grammar of care that invites people across different ages into this conversation. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Raji. Next, we will be moving on to Harley Montero.
Thank you, guys. Let me just share my screen. Happy Black History Month and almost Valentine's Day to those who celebrate that one. Alrighty, here we go. Again, my name is Harley Montero, and I'm here to talk about restoration in the context of climate resiliency. So the project, I am the project manager and lead steward of a 100% volunteer-led and 100% community fundraised stewardship project to restore an S2 listed imperiled habitat type in Massachusetts called a coastal Atlantic white cedar swamp. This began last summer. So the problem boils down to these main two facets. The climate is shifting faster than our flora, our plants are able to migrate, and we are not currently on pace to sufficiently mitigate. And number two, the field of restoration stewardship is incredibly undervalued and as such underfunded and understaffed. This boils down to we need to have more informed conversations about how we efficiently utilize our limited funding to create restored landscapes capable of resiliency in the face of what lies ahead. So the fine print with that, there's a few ways to go about this. I am not currently recommending introducing new species not currently found in our local ecoregions. At the end of the day, plants don't see state or county boundaries. These are arbitrary, made-up boundaries. But a lot of effort has been put into dividing the continent into functional ecoregions that help further closer define what a native species is. I think a noteworthy exception to this is if you live at the southern end of your ecoregion, it is totally logical to begin to look to those ecoregions directly below you. And most of Boston, well, all of Boston and most of Mass is in ecoregion 59, which extends all the way down into Long Island. So the three main ways that I'd like to talk about thinking about this more is plant regionally native species, but using seed sources from further south to help those genetics, an assisted migration of those genetics of regionally native species, bring them into the mix. Number two, find species that
30
maybe
seconds.
occur in the southern end of your ecoregion, but not your immediate area, and look into those, especially if there's wildlife value. And number three, look to similar ecosystems further down the Atlantic coast and see if any species that are native here are more common down there. And that's usually a good cue. Never plant non-native in a restoration context. It's just going to perpetuate our crisis. And if you'd like to learn more about my project or my decision making, join my breakout room or reach out to me there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Harley. Next, we will move on to Colleen Hitchcock.
pleasure to be here today. I'm Colleen Hitchcock. I'm representing the City Nature Challenge. I'm a faculty member at Brandeis. And before I go into our slides, the City Nature Challenge is organized here in Boston by a number of collaborators, including UMass Boston, the Museum of Science, Earthwise Aware, and the Massachusetts Department of Fish and Game. And so I'm going to talk to you about this year's challenge. I'm excited to see in the participant list that we have a number of names that I recognize. So I think we have some past participants with us. And so what is the City Nature Challenge? It is a 4-day BioBlitz, where a BioBlitz is simply a brief, intensive survey of biodiversity over a set area on a short period of time. It occurs annually over this 4-day window in Boston. We are celebrating our 10th year participating in the City Nature Challenge, but it has been happening globally. This will be the 11th year. And this year we anticipate probably close to 700 cities worldwide are engaging. And so what as educators can we do to engage in the City Nature Challenge, and what is it? So it works in that there's a observation phase as well as a identification phase. Most educators engage their students in the observation phase, but there's also lots to do in the identification phase. And what do I mean by the observation phase? Well, the observation phase is where people go out using their phones as data collectors, will snap a photo, record a sound, create evidence of a species, and add it into iNaturalist. For Boston, we have 170 towns that fall within our research area. We like to call this the upside down snail. And so anybody who makes an observation on iNaturalist during this 4-day window, their observations will automatically be collected into our project. So to use iNat, again, phone, record a picture or a sound. You'll get a suggestion depending on which version of the app that you're using. And then the community will work to help you identify it, and it'll get potentially to research grade. When you use iNaturalist to identify species, you're both engaging people in nature and science. So it's a great way to connect students and increase their own bioliteracy. And it's a safe way to do it as an educator. And by safe way, I mean, if you're not 100% confident of what you're seeing out there in the natural world, the iNaturalist community has your back, and they will help you guide students to increase their bioliteracy.
30 seconds.
The second aspect is you help to accelerate biodiversity science and conservation. So there have been lots of ways that this data has been used. So the byproduct of increasing a student's bioliteracy is creating data. So I invite you to join me in the breakout room. I'm happy to talk about how iNaturalist works, what education tools are available, answer your specific questions about getting started by yourself or with students, and how to be COPA compliant if that is a concern in your classroom, and finding the right tool or app for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colleen. I know a lot of us in here love using iNaturalist, so it's very exciting. Always an exciting event from the city. So next up, our next speaker, unfortunately, was unable to make it today, but did want us to share some information. So the speaker would have been Kinsey Mustafa Woodberg from Boston Harbor Now. They are working on the Innovation Islands project, and they are currently taking applications. So if you would like to learn more about that, Rebecca has dropped a link in the chat, and you can follow that to learn more. So with that, we will move on to our last speaker in this session. That is going to be Joanna Arugo.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna Argudo, and this is Community Mapping for Climate Resiliency. I'm the Climate Resilience Engagement Associate for the Charles River Watershed Association. In case you are not familiar with CRWA, it has been around since 1965, and we're an environmental advocacy organization working towards protecting, restoring, and enhancing the Charles River and its watershed through science, advocacy, and the law. And so, like many urban rivers in this country, the Charles has been historically contaminated with factory waste, chemical waste, the creation of dams that have resulted in poor water quality and aquatic habitat. So a lot of our work continues to focus on ensuring that the river's watershed is healthy. And so in case you're not familiar, to orient everyone on the 12 geographic area we're talking about, the Charles River itself is around 80 miles long. You can see it in that dark blue color on the map there, and starts from Hopkinton, moving its way downstream to the Boston Harbor. And so our watershed, which is the area of land that captures rain and drains it into the river, is a little over 300 square miles in that teal color. But today we're going to be talking about some of our Boston specific work. So I just wanted to mention that Boston also has other areas that are in the Mystic and the Pontic River watershed. But through our climate resiliency work, we are able to partner with the Boston Office of Green Infrastructure to be the lead community engagement on our community-based flood mapping and green infrastructure project. And so through this project, we have been able to partner with other community organizations and watershed associations in the area to help report inland flooding and kind of create a web experience page that tracks people's responses to flooding and will be used to help identify potential green infrastructure sites. And so to help with engagement on this project, we have taken different educational methods to teach the public about green infrastructure and ways that it can kind of help their community. And so an interactive model that we've been using is called Bioswale in the Bag, and a couple people have been able to borrow that. And it's an interactive green infrastructure model that is just used to show how stormwater runoff is affecting the Charles River, but it can be changed for other areas, and how a bioswale, so type of green infrastructure, can help some of that runoff. And we've been able to use it in different settings, but definitely with our green infrastructure ambassador trainings that have been really interested in how the model works. And then most recently, we've been trying to include more art. And so we use different printmaking materials to create like a print or a scene, and kids and adults can create a piece of art or bring something they want to customize, like a tote bag or their own clothing, and kind of learn about green infrastructure while creating that art, and learning how green infrastructure can be incorporated into our cities and towns. So in this picture there, you can see how someone has created little scenes instead of all that regular pavement that you would see. You kind of see a rain garden or a treat pit with pollinator plants and all that kind of, what they would like to see in their city or town. But that's it. If you want to learn more about the project website, there's a link here, and then more of our educational and outreach resources.
Thank you so much, Joanna.
I'm going to get started with session number 3, which is experiential learning. And our first presenter will be Michaela Moss from Navigation Games.
Hi, everybody. Give me one second. Okay. Hi. Thanks for having me. My name is Michaela Moss, and I'm the program manager for Navigation Games. We're a Cambridge-based nonprofit that partners with schools and youth-serving organizations to bring orienteering into their programming. So, what is orienteering? Orienteering is an international sport where participants use a map to find checkpoints either in a set order or by visiting as many as possible within a time limit in any order. You can do it solo or in groups, recreationally or competitively. It's often called the thinking sport because it challenges both your brain and your body, requiring quick decision making and close attention to your surroundings. One of the best things about orienteering is how flexible it is. It can happen almost anywhere on a school playground, in local parks or forests, in urban neighborhoods, or even indoors when needed. So, why does orienteering matter? In a world full of screens, it gets kids active and engaged outdoors, builds map reading and problem solving skills, and helps develop confidence and resilience by encouraging learning through mistakes. It also fosters environmental awareness through focused exploration of spaces, and through team-based activities, it strengthens communication and collaboration. These skills carry over directly into the classroom and everyday life. Its flexibility goes beyond location. You can tailor activities to emphasize your program's goals, whether that's adding ecosystem information at each checkpoint or adding geometry and mathematics into route choice. At Navigation Games, we've broken orienteering down into accessible, age-appropriate, fun lessons for students from pre-K through 12th grade. Our 6 lesson progression is currently taught in Cambridge Public Schools as part of the 3rd grade PE curriculum, and all of our lessons are available for free online. Getting started is simple. Orienteering requires minimal equipment, mainly a map and checkpoints. A detailed orienteering map is ideal, and we can help you create one for your school or nearby public space. But even a basic map like Google Maps works well for introductory activities. You just draw on checkpoints and you're ready to go. We also offer an intro orienteering kit with materials and lesson plans, though everything is available for free if you want to build your own. Navigation games can support you in a variety of ways. We offer staff-led programming from single session experiences to multi-week lesson series and off-site field trips. We also help with long-term implementation through educator trainings, virtual consultations, and free online curriculum resources. This spring, we're especially excited to offer 2 free educator training events at the Blue Hills Reservation and Franklin Park. These hands-on trainings will introduce beginner navigation skills, walk through our lesson progression, and explore how to run orienteering activities in different environments. Participants leave with ready-to-use lesson plans and confidence to run a program on their own. Our goal is really simple to get you and your students orienteering. So the next steps are really easy. If you're
30
interested,
seconds.
visit navigationgames.org, email us to schedule a free call, register for one of these trainings, or join us at any of our public orienteering events to see it all in action. Thanks.
Thanks, Michaela. And next up, we have Grace Romowicz from Green Cambridge.
Hi, one second. I just need to start sharing my screen. Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. My name is Grace Romowicz. I'm currently serving as the TerraCore member doing community engagement coordination at the nonprofit Green Cambridge. And today I'm here to talk to you about what our organization does. We are 501c3 nonprofit in Cambridge, Mass, with a focus on creating programmatic opportunities for youth to be involved in environmental education and restoration, as well as creating general volunteer opportunities to connect with our local community and environment. We do this through 2 main programs, which is our Canopy Crew and then our stewardship of the Alewife Brook Reservation, which I'll be going in a little bit more detail to because I'm more involved with that. So going into a summary of one of our main programs, which is Canopy Crew. This is a youth urban forestry program where juniors and seniors from the Cambridge area meet once a week for a environmental curriculum day, and then on the weekends they go out and interact with the community through planting trees in private properties throughout Cambridge. This is an effort to increase Cambridge's canopy coverage. Above, we have some stats about just our program right now. 2 I want to highlight is that we've engaged over 45 local youth and planted so far 261 trees, which are hoping to continue as the spring season comes into swing. And then moving forward to our Alewife Brook Reservation programming. In 2019, we absorbed the Friends of the Alewife Brook Reservation organization and started our journey as stewards. That first started with our Community Health Action Plan, which we made in partnership with the National Park Service. This plan was an effort to build a strategic path forward to help restore the ecological health and also accessibility of the Alewife Reservation. 2 key strategies highlighted in that plan that we are pursuing is supporting environmental restoration through community engagement and youth education. To start that, we have started doing free educational walks and events in the Alewife. We have also started doing a lot of work around invasive removal and monitoring. So far in the past, in 2021, we started our River Restore Youth Program, which we used Mayor Summer Youth volunteers to do invasive removals and native plantings on a land parcel that we have permissions to do so within the Alewife Reservation. This is supposed to serve as a pilot for our future Restore Corps program, which will mirror our Canopy Crew program with a focus on engaging youth in environmental restoration through invasive removals and native plantings. Another program that we are also holding is in partnership with Earthwise Aware in their invasive flora patrol. Earthwise Aware is a great organization that I know some people here are also involved with that provide a lot of opportunities for citizen science And one of those is their invasive flora patrol. So we hold walks teaching people how to use those to map and monitor invasives in the greater Boston area over time, as well as teaching people the importance of invasive management and how to ID common invasives around the alewife area. But thank you so much. And yeah.
Thank you, Grace. And next we have some folks from Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, talking about youth engagement in the scientific method.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Gonzalez. I'm the program coordinator here at Save the Harbor, and today we're going to be talking about our Youth Leadership and Development Program. So each summer we hire around 40 youth from BPS schools, as well as college-age leaders. During their 9 weeks of employment, they get to work with over 250 youth community groups at sites across the Boston Harbor. And kind of for the leadership aspect, we have Leadership Fridays. Each Friday, all 40 youth get to come together and we do field trips and workshops, such as to advance career skills as well as to network with local environmental groups. And last year, we had the opportunity to pilot a new research project, which we discussed actually at this conference last year.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Scott. I'm the staff scientist and grant writer at Save the Harbor. So going off of what Megan said, we piloted our Boston Harbor research project this past summer. We had 2 cohorts, 3-week sessions for each of those, where they explored independent research questions and designed their own experiments. This is, them interacting with the scientific method and really diving deeper into that outside of the classroom. They enhance their skills in field research, data collection, scientific writing, and creating a scientific poster that you could present, at a conference. And the field trips and Leadership Fridays, we collaborated with fellow Boston Harbor organizations. These included Mass Oyster Project, Charles River Conservancy, Mystic River Watershed, and a bunch of others.
Cool. So the reason why we implemented this program not only was because of the goals that Emily outlined on the last slide, but we heard a lot of feedback from our youth that they were like, we love being outside all summer working with younger kids, but we want an opportunity to explore the Boston Harbor and waterfront sites based on things that I'm individually interested in. So we're trying to continue this program, and we've been working on just planning for this summer. But because 50% of our high schoolers are returning each summer, we don't want to just kind of rinse and repeat, hey, we're doing the same stuff from last year, but really find ways to build on our success from last summer. So we're really thinking of, introducing skills labs for these year 2 junior program assistants. So those are high school folks.
30 seconds.
And really focus on career exploration. So kind of connecting with professionals in our network for informational interviews and kind of learning those networking skills. So we collaborated and we found a lot of connections at this conference last year. And so we're really asking folks in the room later to connect with us not only on, building out those year after year kind of gradual building as you guys or as the folks return, but also if you want to connect on our field trip days or a career panel. So I'm excited to chat.
And then quickly, I just wanted to mention some of our other programs that we have going on at Save the Harbor. So if you have any groups that are, looking for field trips or programming over the summer, we offer a lot of free stuff. So happy to chat later in the breakout room or in person this afternoon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Next up, we have Melissa Roberts from Puddle Stompers.
I'm struggling with getting my thing to. Is it shared or no?
I'm not seeing it yet.
Oh no, it's not letting me share. Why is this not happening?
You sent it to me, right?
Yeah, I just sent you an updated one.
Okay, I can pull that up.
Oh
No
no,
problem.
now it's going to tell me to leave. Oh no.
I can share screen.
Okay, that would be helpful. All right, so my name is Melissa Roberts, and my colleague Caroline spoke this morning about how we are at Puddle Stompers Nature Exploration. We're trying to implement nature-based approaches to our curriculum, and we are also going to be integrating environmental picture books to help develop children's eco-literacy and develop positive environmental behaviors. And I wanted to start by defining what positive environmental behaviors are. And the definition is that are actions that are consciously taken to minimize negative impacts on the environment or actively improve it. And some examples are saving water, recycling, using an electric car, turning the lights off when you leave a room. And those are some very basic ways that we model positive environmental behaviors for children. But it's also important that we teach them how natural systems work. And then once they learn how those natural systems work, they can apply that to some green approaches for climate-related issues within their own community. And also, we want them to understand that it takes a community to meet the challenges of climate change. And I wanted to share a little example of some slides from a picture book that I've been working on that it's called a kid's guide to planning for climate change. And some of the slides, just if we move forward, the next one shows a child's neighborhood is flooded. And we see some houses being flooded. And if we move forward to seeing marsh grasses and dunes and mussels that are things that live are part of a natural system, and that these natural systems can also contribute to long-term sustainability and resilience within their communities. And one thing that we also thought would be interesting was teaching them about permeable pavement and how cities can use that and how it traps water and then slowly releases it into the ground, very much like a marsh. And then we see green spaces that are very important to our cities and neighborhoods for carbon sequestration. They can also help mitigate the urban heat island effect. And also, it's important for children to really understand that parks are places where communities come to congregate and have fun and be a part of their community, and it contributes to the overall health of the community.
30
We
seconds.
also we have a living seawall. And then if we move on, we have some marshes. So children see a variety of ways that nature can be used to resolve some climate-based issues. And we're hoping that in the last slide, we talk about how environmental storytelling can be integrated into community science programs or school enrichment programs, and that it can deepen children's understanding of ecological systems, understand their role in stewardship and conservation, and begin to learn how human-nature coupled systems are interconnected, and thereby hopefully developing their eco-literacy and promoting positive environmental behaviors. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Next up, we have Nicole Freimier from the Salem Sound Coast Watch.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Freimeier. I'm the School to Sea Director at Salem Sound Coast Watch. Just for a little bit of background, I started out in environmental education, working at zoos and in residential environmental learning centers, and then moved to working at a children's museum, Kids Quest Children's Museum outside of Seattle, for about 6 years, where the primary audiences was children ages 2 to 5. But I worked in the elementary science, and then I moved on to be a Montessori elementary teacher, and getting my credential, also did some coursework in early childhood Montessori education. So now I'm back in environmental education, so happy to be here at Salem Sound Coast Watch with our field experiences, working with high school oceanography classes, but also we were asked to do pre-K enrichment for the Salem Public Schools throughout the school year. And so with the time frame we have, 30 minutes indoors, with this learners, I've been able to bring in a lot of the educational activities from Montessori and children's museums and tie them into environmental concepts. We've had a lot of success with that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. To show you kind of what that looks like. Can you see it? Yeah, okay, great. So this is an example of our water science activities. So we have here some really focus. So again, if you're unfamiliar with, so children's museums and Montessori education are kind of aligned in really hands-based inquiry through play, open exploration for early learners. And so what you're seeing here, even though you see lots of bright colors and fun little beads, and I consider this to be a developmentally appropriate level of academic rigor to our middle school water quality, to our high school physical oceanography. That's the same level of science that's happening on this page, just a lot more bright colors. So as you can see, we usually start the lessons on whether it's one activity in our 30-minute enrichment blocks. This is taken from a library program where we paired 2 hands-on activities with a small story time beginning. We usually start with an anchor text or a picture book, and then maybe some kind of visual. In this one, we use different colors of water to represent that the water has different properties in different parts of the watershed. And then over here, we have the color mixing activity. This color mixing activity with the primary colors is very serious science for early learners, and it's something that over the time I've seen it, they can there's a misconception that early learners can't focus on something. I have a hard time pitching to teachers that we could do an hour-long program with preschool students because there's this misconception that students that age don't pay attention well. But the truth is that they want to engage and they want to explore. And so if they have end-to-end crafts, end-to-end graphs or coloring sheets sometimes can limit that open and exploration. In times where we can't get to a tide pool, these activities from those philosophies have been really helpful. So you can ask me more about some of the other activities or design at the breakout room.
Thank you, Nicole. And last but not least, our final presentation will be from Claire Cunningham from Manomet.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Claire Cunningham. I am, the Senior Education Manager at Manomet Conservation Sciences. And I am here to talk about schoolyard surveys and stewardship and kind of how do we move from data collection and surveys to empowering stewardship or even to stewardship action within the community. So I'm going to just highlight some of the activities that we've done with schools. And then I'd love to dive deeper in the breakout rooms. But I'm going to start with a heat mapping activity that we do, where this is typically we have different versions that we do for K through 5. And it's based on the idea that the city of Brockton is an urban heat island, and there are areas that get significantly warmer throughout the day than some of these other spots. So right in the middle here, we have a map of the city of Brockton. And then also Avon and Abington, and it's a little counterintuitive, but the blue areas on the map are actually parks. So that's Ames Knoll State Park and then DW Field Park, and those are the largest green spaces in the area, and you can see that the rest of the map is these oranges, and then downtown Brockton is bright, bright red. So those are areas that trap heat throughout the day. And this map was created in 2022 through a participatory science project where community members actually went out with their cars and mapped the city themselves. So this is something that the city was involved in. We had volunteers go out and collect this data. And then with students, we bring them outside with infrared thermometers and they go out and they map their schoolyard. And you can see kind of up in the upper right-hand corner, we made a really basic map of the school, and then students will use sticky dots to kind of recreate the heat map image in their schoolyards. And they can go out different times during the day, they can go out different times during the year, and see how these different surfaces collect heat over a period of time. And it's been a lot of fun and really engaging for students. And then on the left-hand side, we also have a heat mapping display that we've done at the library and also heat mapping activities at the bottom that we've done at the library as well. So not only are we getting the schools involved, the city involved, but then also other community groups within the city to just keep sharing this message and getting families and students excited about this even when they're not in school. And then another activity that we've done is exploring flood risks. So the city of Brockton
30
did
seconds.
oh my gosh. Okay. So this is an activity where students measure water and how it gets soaked up throughout their schoolyard, and it's based on impervious surfaces throughout the city. And then just really quickly, we like to combine these things with community action things. So there's a Keep Brockton Beautiful Day, and the schools are now participating in Keep Brockton Beautiful Day in their schoolyards. We have celebrations where families will come in and do these activities with teachers and students to get them involved. And it just really encourages or kind of disseminates this knowledge beyond just our student population, but also with their families and with communities. And then some other things that you could do, because schoolyards look different, that are really fun, are iNaturalist observations. A really simple one is having cover boards that students can lift up and collect data on invertebrates, and then also looking at pollinators. And as a final note, a bunch of our students were confused about that white blob that's by our cover board. And one time we lifted it up and we saw a slug laying eggs, and we figured out that they were slug eggs, which was very exciting. But yeah, happy to chat more. Thanks all.
Awesome. Thanks, Claire.